the Tirubhav, which means the day we honor the life of Srila Haridas Thakur, particularly in regards to his departure from this world. Generally it's said that the departure of great Vaishnavas is, not said, generally it actually is more honored than the appearance day. Of course, for one's own, who's going to translate into French? One or two devotees need French. Who knows French? I mean, who needs French? Please ask in French. Just one devotee. So maybe one devotee, if it's just one devotee. If any other devotees do happen to come along, please guide them to this part of the temple. And why the departure day is usually honored a little more than the appearance? Well, for disciples, of course, the appearance day is usually given more emphasis, but in general, the departure day, because it is a culmination of a lifetime of devotion in its various aspects. Generally speaking, when a great Vaishnava appears in this world, it is not so visible, not so noticeable. In fact, it may be unnoticed at all, entirely. No one may recognize. There are exceptions, but generally it's not something which is clear. That manifests usually later in their lives, when they manifest their pure devotional service to the Lord. Sometimes the appearance is not even known as to when they appeared exactly. In the case of Haridas, it's not known exactly when he appeared. But it is known when he departed. And his departure is one of those very, let's say, famous isn't the right word probably, but very renowned events in Gaur Leela. The departure of Haridas Thakur. It's a lesson for one and all. It's a purifying event. It's a very pleasing event. And today we have the opportunity to remember the departure of Srila Haridas Thakur. So we'll start by singing, and this is quite usual. We sing the song Sapash, difficult to pronounce it. Sapashata Bhagavat Viraha Janita Vilapa. And this means lamentation. Lamentation due to separation from the Lord and his associates. In the material world, people lament also. When you lose your pet cat or dog, even bajrigar, even fish sometimes, you may cry. For some time, it may last quite some time. What to speak if you lose a family member. Pretty much if we lose anything which we identify with, we lament. We know in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Na shochati na kangshati." No lamenting, no hankering. But there is lamenting and hankering on the spiritual platform. And this is a case of lamentation, which we may also experience in our, let's say, immature stage. We lament when a devotee who is inspirational to us departs or leaves, and we hanker for their association. So it's a part of the process of spiritual realization. It's not exactly material. So we'll sing this song by Narottam Das Thakur. Ye anilo premadana karuna pracho Hina Prabhu Kota Kelacharya Thakur. Kahamor Swarupa Rupa Kahadasarago Nasapatita Pavam. Kahamora Tajuga Kaha Kavira Kahamora Tajuga Kaha Kavira Eka Kale Kota Kela Gora Natarar Ashane Kutibo Mata Anale Pashivo Ashane Kutibo Mata Anale Pashivo Goranga Kunera Nidi Kota Kile Pabo Se sab sangira sange Ye koilo bila Se sangana paya kande narottamada Ye anilo prematam Karuna pracho Eno Prabhu Kota Kela Chaya Thakur. Eno Prabhu Kota Kela Chaya Thakur. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyari Aschachadistatharine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Achadishatharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Srila Haridas Thakur 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 Haridas Thakur Srila Haridas Thakur Srila Haridas Thakur Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur, oh hey Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, oh hey Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shtata Sadashve. Hey Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Kota Vaishnavinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Srila Namacharya Haridas Thakur Tirobhav Mahamahotsav Ki. Gauda Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Sri Bhadara Krishna Vastaya Place and Chana Sisa Sanyavadi Pastacharya Shatai. Hare Krishna. There's an interesting conversation with Srila Prabhupada where he describes the today. He's going through the days one by one on the calendar. Vaishnava calendar at this point of time. And he discusses Vamla Dwadashi, which you had on Monday. And yesterday, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Avirbhav Mahotsav, the appearance of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And then he says today, what is today? And then they say, Ananta Chaturdasi, and the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur. And Prabhupada then says, oh, today is a fast day. From one devotee says, because of Haridas Thakur, and Prabhupada says, no, because it's Ananta Chaturdasi. We don't do it. We never did it. And we don't do it now either. I mean, you can do it if you want. But there's no established fast. Huh? The Prabhupada said that in one conversation. And this is like, more or less, we are halfway through what we call Chaturmas. Huh? What is Chaturmas? I don't know if you know, have heard of it. Yes, these 4 months, Chaturmas. And what do we do during those 4 months? Nothing, particularly. Just carry on as usual. This is the first year I've not actually followed it. Yeah. In terms of the basic minimum. I mean, obviously we break it by accident, but not by purpose. And Prabhupada did say that we should, at least, he writes it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, at least we should follow 4 things during this Chaturmas, minimum. But even Prabhupada didn't enforce it, he didn't even himself follow it strictly, not to speak of in ISKCON. But it was very much more, let's say, emphasized in days of yore. That means during Prabhupada's time. Or maybe in India it's very strictly observed by most. But this month, I don't know which month we're in. We're in the second month now, aren't we? Second month is fasting from yogurt, which I certainly haven't done. I didn't even think about it much for a time. This has been a very offense on my part. But and the next month, starting on the day after tomorrow, fasting from milk. Whatever that means, you just put 1 grain of semolina in it, or harine, what do they call it, farina, and it's no longer milk, it becomes semolina pudding. 1 grain of rice, it becomes sweet rice. Huh? 1 tulsi leaf, it becomes tulsi milk. Devotees find ways around it. The last month's an easy one, no urd dal. Don't even know what it is. No poppadoms, basically, that's what it means. Nothing much. Not very big fast. The actual fasting is very strict. That we may have heard of it. The main thing that we're going to talk about today is not that. It is, of course, focused on the Nama Acharya, Haridas Thakur. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhuttale Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Namami Haridasam Tang Chaitanyang Tang Chatat Prabhum Sangstitam api yanmurting Sankhe kritva nanartaya Namami Haridasam tang Chaitanyang tang chatat prabhum Sangstitam api yanmurting Svankhe kritva nanartaya. Let me offer. Oh, one or two of you can chant if you want. Anybody like to chant the mantra?
Namami Haridas Sanktam.
Namami Haridas Sanktam.
Chaitanyam tam chatat prabhum.
Chaitanyam tang chatat prabhum.
Sangstitam apiyat murtim.
Sangstitam apiyat murtim.
Sankhe kritva nanartaya.
Sankhe kritva nanartaya. One or two others? Men.
Namami Haridas Sanktam.
Namami Haridas Sanktam.
Chaitanyam tam chatat prabhum.
Chaitanyam tang chatat prabhum.
Sangstitam apiyat murtim.
Sangstitam apiyat murting.
Sankhe kritva nanartaya.
Sankhe kritva nanartaya. Ladies? Nobody? Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Haridas Thakur and his master Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who danced with the body of Haridas Thakur on his lap. It's interesting. On his lap. Interesting dance, huh? Because lap means here. You see in his arms. Huh? The Lord can do anything he likes. And he certainly likes Haridas Thakur, as we'll see. So this is an invocation, Mangalacharya, whatever you call it, to the chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchalila, which deals with the departure of Haridas Thakur from the visible pastimes of the Lord. But we'll deal with, basically, with a rough overview of his lifetime, not a rough one, a brief one, which is unlimited, totally transcendental. Even we often hear that Haridas Thakur is a... Who is he? Pardon? Lord Brahma. Huh? Someone said Lord Brahma. Not an ordinary person. Lord Brahma, for those who don't know, is understood to be the creator of the universe on behalf of Krishna. His name is Visharga, means secondary creator. Krishna's Sarga is the original creator. So that's quite a big position, but is more than that. We'll hear that in a minute. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu derives great pleasure from glorifying his devotees. And among the devotees, Haridas Thakur is the foremost. This is also Chaitanya Charitamrita in the glories of Haridas Thakur, also in the Antya-lila. The transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur are innumerable and unfathomable. That means you cannot reach the end. You can't reach the end. They're unlimited. One may describe a portion of them, but to count them all is impossible. There's a very nice book out, Namacharya Haridas Thakur by our godbrother Rupa Vilas Prabhu. Some of you may have read it, some of you may have seen it. I don't think I have any spare copies left. It's very worth a read to give us a little insight into his glories. It was kind of funny because I was on the verge of also publishing, almost on the verge of publishing a book on Haridas Thakur, but we met in London, and he was right on the verge, and he's a writer, and that's his life. So happily we conferred, and he produced the book. In the Chaitanya Mangala, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has described the attributes of Haridas Thakur to some extent. No one can describe all the qualities of Haridas Thakur. One may say something about them just to purify himself. I assure you, this is from Chaitanya Bhagavat, another scripture about Lord Chaitanya's life. I assure you that one who simply chants the name of Haridas without offense will certainly attain the abode of Krishna. What to speak of his touch? Just by seeing Haridas, one is released from the bondage of fruitive activities. Indeed, even if one sees a person who has taken shelter of Haridas, he is freed from material bondage. Everyone, whether elevated or wretched, automatically forgets about mundane life when he sees the lotus feet of Srila Haridas Thakur. We have a deity of Haridas Thakur in Namacharyas. I used to have this little deity. Some of you may have a deity of Haridas Thakur, I don't know. Anyone here has a deity of Haridas Thakur? A lot of devotees do. I used to travel with a deity of Haridas Thakur, and I gave him for various reasons to our Namacharya Prabhu and his good wife, Nandini. With a name like Namacharya, he also chants 32 rounds every day, before you get up, mostly. Starts at 12:30 at night, gets up every day at midnight or 12:30, and chants his rounds before Mangalarti, mostly. So he has this Haridas Thakur. You can take darshan of him. He's in Nandini's house if you want to see. And see the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. It's also from Chaitanya Bhagavat. People would gather around him just to see the unrestricted tears of Krishna Prema that flowed profusely from his eyes, drenching his entire body. Even the strictest atheists marveled at his behavior. Horripilation, probably you don't, I don't know if it's a French word also. Is it a French word? Yes. You know it, okay. Swelled across his, many of the words ending in T-I-O-N or French, same word in French, many of them. I think there's 1,000 words like that, which are the same in English as French. Swelled across his body like thousands of blooming flowers. And even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were amazed by his devotion. Now that's a very strange statement. And we'll hear more about that later. Very strange. Lord Brahma, you just said that he is Lord Brahma. But here we see Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are amazed by his devotion. Think about it. Thakur Haridas was the actual knower of transcendental mellows related with Krishna. And he is the principal teacher for understanding Rasa Shastras. Is that Lord Brahma? Question mark. Or literatures filled with the transcendental mellows related with Krishna. And this is from the Krishnadas Kaviraj says the authorized text on Chaitanya Leela. Mahabhakta Haridas Thakur Jaya Jaya Haridasa Sanarani Sarva Papakshaya. All glories to the great devotee Haridas Thakur. By remembering Haridas, all one's sinful reactions are vanquished. Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. And this, of those who've been to Jagannath Puri. Who has been to Jagannath Puri? Several of you have been to the Holy Dham. You've been Gopaswami Prabhu, you must have been to Jagannath Puri. And if you go to Jagannath Puri, the good chance is you have been to a place called Siddhabakul. What is Siddhabakul? What is it? His bhajan. Haridas Thakur resided for many years in Jagannath Puri with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a place which is called Siddhabakul, because there is a tree there called a bakul tree, and it is a very, we don't have time to tell it, but it's a very famous tree. It's called Siddha. It's a transcendental, very powerful tree. Very powerful. And Haridas chanted his unending rounds under that tree. The Prabhupada says here, we're just giving some points here, we're not telling the history, of course. When it comes to chanting, Prabhupada, this is from Prema Vaivarta by Jagadananda Pandit. When it comes to chanting, the topmost devotee is Srila Haridas Thakur. And it was he who propagated the supreme truth about the holy name. He preached as well as practiced chanting the holy name. Hence he is the Acharya of the holy name, or the Nama Acharya. Whoever chants the Lord's name, following Srila Haridas Thakur's footsteps, will achieve the highest perfection in it. And there's another deity of Haridas, and I've forgotten where that deity is. Now maybe in Haridas Pur, I can't remember. There's deities of Haridas in various places. In Nepal, where he was said to have, he's said to have started his chanting in the forest near his birthplace. And talking about his birth is very unique. We see this sometimes happens, that he took birth, as we hear, in a Muslim family. This is described by our acharyas for various reasons. And this, one of the reasons, in relationship to Lord Brahma, this goes back to the Brahma Vimohana Leela, which means when Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, pastime, when he became bewildered. Some of you have heard this pastime of Lord Brahma when he endeavored to steal the cows and the cowherd boys. Famous pastime. And he was, of course, you could say, defeated. His mystic power was insignificant compared to Krishna's. And he became very remorseful. He felt dreadful, absolutely dreadful about what he did. He tried to interfere with the Leela of Krishna. Great offense. And it's described that he went, I think this is in the Chaitanya Mangala, no, I think it's in another script called the Ananta Samhita. It's described that he went, now the book of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, isn't it? Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Described in there, our Lord Brahma, he went to Navadvip. Navadvip is an eternal abode. It is not just something which was built a few years ago. It is eternal. It doesn't manifest eternally to mundane eyes. To Lord Brahma, he has the vision. He went to Navadvip Dham, and there he performed tapasya for a long time, begging for whatever atonement was required to cleanse him of his offense. And eventually the Lord appeared before him and told him, yes, I'm pleased with you. In my next appearance in this world, I will appear in a special form of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And you will appear with me as my chief whip, that means my chief assistant, in spreading the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy name. The Lord said to him there and then, and your name will be Haridas. The Lord initiated him in this form. And he said, I will arrange it, because part of my mission is to show that anyone can become a pure devotee and go back to Godhead. You will be born, never mind what one's birth, you will be born in a family of Yavanas, which in literal terms in India means Muslim family. And you will chant 300,000 names a day. So this is before the Lord even appeared, before Haridas appeared. This is in Navadvip. Who knows when? It's on a different time scale. So sure enough, Haridas Thakur took birth which is now in Bangladesh, in a village called Buron. Buron. I've never been. One day, I don't know if I'll ever go. But that village, he took birth. And again, not much history is there, which is nothing unusual. Why should there be? But it is known that at a young age he left home. And he went to the forest nearby called the forest of Mayapur. And there in the forest of Mayapur, he started chanting. There's not even a record of him meeting a Vaishnava. It could well have happened, but there's no official record. There are some, say, speculations or some indications, but there's nothing official. So he started chanting, and he was born in a Muslim family. This is confirmed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, by our own Guru Maharaj, and by Krishnadas Kaviraj and others, that he was born in a Muslim family. But he was chanting 3 lakhs of the holy name every day. How many times do we chant the Mahamantra? How many times a day do we chant the Mahamantra? 16 rounds. Of course, we have kirtan and we may chant elsewhere also, but minimum 16 rounds. How many times is that the Mahamantra? 16 times 108, is it? 27,000 or something, is it?
17,000 something.
16 times 17,000 mantras, is it? Or 1,700? 1,700. 1,700. And if we 1,700 times 16 names, it's not 300,000 mantras, 300,000 names, is it? Huh?
27,000.
27, that's what I thought. 27,000 names. And how long does that take you?
2.5.
Pardon?
2.5.
1 hour and a half, 2.5, something usually between 1.5 and 2.5 hours, isn't it? Usually. Can take longer sometimes. I was reading yesterday, there's a paper out on by the GBC or somebody, some department on chanting Gayatri or something or another. And it is saying there some devotees have given initiation. One sannyasi has given initiation to a devotee who was dumb and deaf. Dumb and deaf. And it takes them like 6 hours to chant 4 rounds in their mind. So he gave them, if you just chant 4 rounds in your mind, he gave initiation. So a question mark. Anyway. But imagine if you had to chant. Now, 300,000 names is how many rounds?
192.
Well, you see here different things here, don't we? Yes, it's actually 300,000 names is less than 192. A little less.
173.
I say, oh, someone's got a calculator there. Oh, it's 173 exactly. So we're not going to split hairs here, whether it was 173, 192, or something in between. But it was a lot of japa. And normally we hear that's like through 64 rounds is heard quite often. Prabhupada said in the beginning of ISKCON, you chant 64 rounds. Okay? That because he got that, of course, he was initiated by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and that was the standard in the Gaudiya Math. 64 rounds a day. Lord Chaitanya says that I do not accept food in anyone's house who's not a lakpati. Lakpati means one who's very rich in those days. one who has at least 100,000 rupees, but that's nothing now. Even the sweeper in the street has 100,000 rupees. But then it was a lot of money. So, my goodness, we're not even going to start. It's already 8:45 over here. What are we going to do? I don't know. We could go on all morning for sure. But he wouldn't accept, what did he mean? He didn't mean one who's rich, but they've always started getting worried. They thought he meant he wouldn't accept anything in their houses anymore. We're poor, we're all poor.
One does not chant one night.
Yes, one who, in the house of, he wouldn't take prasadam in anyone's house unless they were chanting 64 rounds a day. Quite something. Our Srila Prabhupada is very merciful, no? We hope. We certainly need mercy. But Haridas was chanting 3 times that. 64 rounds, you can easily work that one out. If it takes you 2 hours to chant 16, it will take you how many to chant 64?
8 hours.
Very well done. 8 hours. 8 hours times 3 is? 24! Pretty good, huh? Joe, we're not Jyoti's going to start doing now. But Prabhupada says we shouldn't imitate Haridas Thakur. At least we should chant 16. So he was chanting more or less all day. Of course, he may have been chanting a little quicker. Sometimes it said he chanted 64 rounds Vachika Japa, 64 rounds Upamsu Japa, means quiet but vibration in the mouth, and 64 rounds Manasika Japa, which means in the mind or in the heart. And it would be, of course, time for pure devotees has a different dimension. He was also preaching. As you know, he would go with Nityananda Prabhu preaching door to door, market to market, delivering the jagais and the madais. And here's a nice prayer, because time is short. This is a prayer which is in Harinam Chintamani, a prayer which Bhaktivinoda accredits to Haridas Thakur. This is Haridas Thakur's prayer. Dasaha paradayena hridayena pasi, kripakari Mahaprabhu majina marasi. O Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur's praying, please be merciful to me, so that the 10 offenses never touch my heart. I couldn't find it last night in the night. I couldn't find the one with the diacritic marks. I have one somewhere with it on in one of the presentations. And I can always remain absorbed in the rasa of the holy name. Very simple prayer. Something we can meditate on. Maybe you can even say it before chanting japa. It's up to you. No principle. So we're going to go now back to the forest of Mayapur. Anyone been there? There's a temple now of Haridas Thakur there. ISKCON temple. Not been, but I've seen pictures. I have pictures. So this is a very famous scene from that forest, isn't it? Very famous. Doesn't look very transcendental in one sense. Depends, if you know the story, it's the most transcendental and the most practical story and relevant story to us, isn't it? How the local, there was a local zamindar, a local rich man in the local area named Ramchandra Khan. A Hindu man, and he was very influential and very rich. And he was very proud. And he heard about nearby in the forest that this Muslim was chanting Hare Krishna. In his mind, he was a Muslim. And he was getting recognized, the local people were going to him and honoring him, basically. He was getting a little famous. So Ramchandra became a little envious and thought, I'm going to, create some problems here. When you preach Krishna consciousness, envious people do sometimes try to impede the preaching or the practice of a devotee. Maya also tests a devotee. Huh? That's her business. Don't think we're not going to get tested. When you get tested, that's actually a sign It's not just oh my God, why is this happening to me? I thought, oh, everything would be roses, everything would be bliss. They told me when I came, everything's blissful. Why am I being tested? Maya does test. Maya tested Jesus Christ also. She tested Haridas Thakur. Not because they're, neophytes, they're not. Just to show how great they are. And to show us what, test is needed. If we want to go back to Godhead, Vishayo chariya kabe, Huda habimon, Kabe hama he rabo Sri Vrindavan. Want to go back to Vrindavan? We all say, yes, of course I do. But the other part of the verse is another thing. One has to be completely freed of all attraction to sense gratification. Not so easy, is it? It's a deep thing, isn't it? Attraction to sense gratification. It's not just eating meat or having, illicit sex or something like that, intoxicant. It's much deeper. And Haridas Thakur is a personification of one who is freed from the desire for sense gratification. This is truly humility, tolerance, humility, respect. So this Ramchandra Khan, he thought, this so-called Haridas is simply a low-class Muslim putting on a show to get respect. That's all. Nothing more or less than that. And I'll prove it. We'll see what kind of transcendentalist he is. So he called upon the local prostitutes in the town he was in, and he offered them a lot of money if you will go in the dead of night to that place in the forest of Benapal and tempt Haridas, and easily will cause him to fall down, and it will be proven that he's just a charlatan. He's just an imitator. No problem. Can you imagine having a test like this? Whew! These were not ordinary prostitutes. They were really the best of the best. And eventually, no one would do it. They'd heard about it and they were afraid. They were afraid of this. But eventually one agreed. Hirabai. Her name was Hirabai. She was also Lakpati. She was not Lakpati, she was Lak Hirabai or something like her name was. Because a minimum price to be with her was 1 lakh. A lot of money. She was the most expensive. So he paid her off, and she said, oh, don't worry, I will easily tempt him. She was the most beautiful of all the prostitutes. And she went into the forest in the dead of night. Haridas was chanting Hare Krishna in front of Tulsi Devi. And even the prostitutes were pious. She offered her obeisances to Tulsi Devi and sat there in front of Haridas. And she began to expose herself, if you know what that means. We won't get into detail. In front of Haridas. And Haridas said, my dear Mata, please, how can I serve you? She explained her business. Said, well, I'm a little bit busy right now. I promised to finish my chanting. I've made a vow this month to chant 1 billion names, and I haven't finished. Something like that. She said, please wait, I've almost finished. So she sat there all night long, listening to Haridas chant. The morning came. She was so tired and he was still chanting. She went back to Ramchandra Khan. Haridas said, oh, please, before she left, I'm very sorry I couldn't satisfy you because I haven't finished my vow. But I'm sure if you come back again, I will have finished and then I will satisfy you. So she was confident next day she would succeed. Same thing happened the next night. Said, but this night, I've almost finished. Definitely on the third night, I will satisfy you. So she was excited. Ramchandra was excited. She went back the third night. He chanted and chanted all night long. And she was becoming naturally purified. Naturally. The morning came. I finished my rounds. Now I can satisfy. This is the picture of what happened. She fell on the floor in front of Haridas, offering her obeisances, throwing all of her jewelries and everything on the ground, begging forgiveness, explaining the whole situation to Haridas. Why she came. Haridas said, my dear Mata, I knew everything in the very beginning. I would have left this place immediately, but I knew you were coming. And because you were coming, I stayed here, and now I'm leaving. But I want you to stay here now and continue chanting 3 lakhs of rounds, of mantras, of names. In this place, give up everything, depend on Krishna. And she did. She stayed in that place and continued the legacy which Haridas Thakur had given, has shown. And there's now a temple there. This is a temple of Hirabai, that prostitute. You see a picture on the front sometimes of the Namamrita. That is not a picture of Haridas Thakur, that's a picture of Hirabai. She shaved her head and sat there all day long chanting the holy names. Completely pure. That's what happened to Ramachandras and everything. And anyway, long stories. There are stories of in between. And what shall I do? Cut a long story short. Well, tonight we have the Kirtan this evening. It's Thursday, isn't it?
You can do class till 9:30 if you want.
Huh?
You can do class till 9:30 if you want.
Now? What pardon?
The devotees who have service can go, but others can.
It's up to you. 9:30 tonight.
No, I said
Whoop. Whoop. You see, go was wrong. Whoop. Whatever. I don't want to hold anyone up. It's difficult. So Haridas Thakur left that place and Hirabai stayed there. She became a great... He imparted, I don't think I've got that quote here, but he imparted unto her Krishna Prema. He gave her Krishna Prema. Now this, by the way, Haridas Thakur appeared in the world approximately, according to the biographies or whatever you call it, approximately 30 years before Mahaprabhu. This pastime took place before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya had not manifested his pastimes, and this is, let's say, it is simply explained by our acharyas, simple as that. So he left that place, and she stayed there, and he went then traveling. He came to the place, I've forgotten the name of the place, where Raghunath Das was a small boy. Raghunath Das, his father, Govardhan Majumdar, and his uncle Hiranya Majumdar, they were very rich people. Raghunath Das Goswami, at that time it was not Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath was in a very, very rich family. And they had a priest named Bhagavanacharya who invited Haridas to come to their house to speak on the glories of the holy name, because he was going everywhere preaching the glories of the holy name. So he came there, and in the house of the Majumdars, there was one Brahmin named Gopal Chakravarti. They were engaging him like a secretary, basically. They were very rich, and he was working for them. So this young Brahmin, Gopal Chakravarti, was also very puffed up. Sometimes when you're born in a very prestigious family, it's easy to get puffed up. You know, I'm sure that some of us here are proud of our birth, proud of our aristocracy. Some of you may be born in what we call an aristocratic family, I don't know. Anybody here, or you're too humble to admit it? Even if we're not, we're proud of our birth. I'm born in such and such a place. Basically, we're proud of something. So this Brahmin was very proud of being he was a very handsome young man, proud of being a Brahmana. And when he heard Haridas speak, and he also knew he was a Muslim-born person, he felt very, what is this? How can a Muslim-born person speak anything about the Vedas or the conclusions of the Vedas or anything like this? How is it possible? And Haridas was talking about what's called Namabas. You know Namabas? What is Namabas?
The second.
Yeah, the clearing stage. When one's chanting, one's not chanting in love, one's not chanting even in full realization, but one's chanting consciously or unconsciously without offense, trying to avoid the offense, or unknowingly chanting without offense. It's a stage in between offensive and pure chanting. And he said that even this type of chanting one can attain liberation. That was the crux of it. So this Brahmin said, what nonsense is this? And he started to, quote some smarter shastras, the Brahminical understanding. You have to take birth in a Brahmin family and practice spiritual life for lifetimes and so on and so forth, and perform austerities. You cannot possibly attain liberation unless you're a Brahmana. And Haridas then quoted many verses to justify his statements. The Brahmin was not satisfied at all, and he became very angry. He was a young man. Became very angry. He said, if it is not true that you can attain liberation by simply chanting the holy names, no matter what your birth, I will cut off your nose and your ears. He became very angry. Haridas said, well, if it's not true, I'll cut my own nose and ears off. Don't worry. The Brahmin became infuriated, and Bhagavanacharya and Hiranya and Govardhan, when they heard this, they chased that man out of their house. Get out of here, you rascal, you offender, you blasphemer. Go away. They chased him out. They were devastated because they invited Haridas, and this so-called Brahmin offended him. And so, of course, later on, a few days later, that Brahmin, Gopal Chakravarti's nose, he got leprosy. His nose melted, his ears melted, they all fell off. Haridas was very sad. Of course, he later got the mercy of Mahaprabhu also. He was very sad. He said, don't take any offense. But it's a very important lesson. Very important lesson. It's described in that book, Namacharya. And I can't remember the reference, but there's a reference there. How this event was very significant for all of us. If you offend, or I offend, or any of us offend a Vaishnava, it's not enough just to beg forgiveness to that Vaishnava. It's not enough. Even if Gopal Chakravarti had begged for... Haridas never took offense, he forgave him. But it is not enough. Why? Because in public he had offended Haridas. Just imagine nowadays what's going on social media. You put something out there, you've got to be careful, tell you what you put on social media. Be careful. You can knowingly or unknowingly offend a Vaishnava. And it's heard by sometimes millions. It's the millions that we have to ask forgiveness from, not the Vaishnava we've offended. We've hijacked their lives. We've polluted their opportunity to advance if we're not careful. Krishna consciousness is very dangerous form. We're here to glorify the Vaishnavas, not criticize. Anyway, we won't go further on that. Haridas Thakur, then he went on. By the way, he was actually the Siksha Guru of Raghunath Das Goswami. It was Haridas who, you could say, inspired Raghunath Das in his life, in the initial stages. He went on towards Shantipur, an area associated with Advaita Acharya, who was very happy, although Advaita Acharya is the topmost of the Brahmins. When he saw Haridas Thakur, he felt great satisfaction. They embraced. Advaita Acharya is a form of Vishnu and Shiva combined. He's not an ordinary jiva. And he's one of the Panchatattva, worshipable form. But he embraced Haridas and together they danced. And there's another proof that these pastimes took place prior to Mahaprabhu's appearance. In the Chaitanya Bhagavad, it describes how both Haridas and Advaita Acharya were praying for the Lord's appearance. Together. So there in Shantipur, Haridas was there chanting again, of course. And Advaita Acharya arranged a place called Pulia, which is near Shantipur, a place for Haridas Thakur to sit and chant his rounds. Sometimes it's set a cave-like situation. Sometimes it's a hollow of a tree. But whatever it was, he was there, usually a cave-like situation there, near the banks of the Ganga. He was chanting his rounds. Many pastimes took place there, and unfortunately won't have much time to go over them. But one which we'll mention is perhaps the most famous. There's this, of course, the snake in the cave is a very famous pastime. Mayadevi also tested him there in that cave. But another pastime was he was chanting there. Many Brahmins, even Brahmins, those who were humble, were coming there and taking the association of Haridas. Muslims were coming. Muslims were becoming completely transformed in the association of Haridas. So this came to the attention of the local Qazi. The Qazi means magistrate. Every township had a magistrate. As we hear Chand Qazi, this was not the Chand Qazi. The Chand Qazi was in the Mayapur district. This is another Qazi. This Qazi heard what was going on, and he became very, very angry, especially when he heard Muslims were being transformed. It's only natural, you could say. So he decided that he was going to stop this. He spoke to the Nawab, the king, about this Muslim-born personality who has become a Hindu, which in their tradition is, of course, a great offense. It is treason, what's the word? Blasphemous, whatever. So he decided that he would arrest him and bring him to the Nawab for trial. So he went to that cave, and there with his guards, they arrested Haridas. Of course, the local people were astonished. They were horrified. But they arrested him and took him away to the court of the Nawab. And there he was tried by the Nawab. And the Nawab is sitting there in the middle with I don't know how you can describe it. He's got on a blue asana there. And Haridas, you can see him there. This is a painting. You've probably never seen it before. This was done one time. I used to go regularly to Jagannath Puri, and I had a very close friend, an aspiring friend, whatever, who was living in Jagannath Puri, and he was an artist, professional artist, and he knew all the professional artists in the Jagannath Puri temple. So this was painted by one of the artists of the Jagannath Puri temple. We asked him to paint this, and we did a series of 3 paintings, and we didn't go any further, but he did this one. And anyways, just his slight angle on the event of Haridas Thakur in front of the Nawab in his court. And the Nawab is seeing that Haridas is very effulgent. He's very blissful. And he could see this person is not an ordinary person. So he had a lot of sympathy for him, actually. He was kind of a bit perplexed what to do here. The Qazi is really angry and wants him punished severely. And the Nawab has got he said, Haridas, why you were born in a very elevated family. Why have you given up your elevated position as a Muslim and become a low-class Hindu? And Haridas then explained there's only one God, the God of the Hindus, the God of the Muslims, and everyone else is the same person. There's a difference there. And he appears in many different ways. There's no duality here. He said, then why don't you preach from the Quran? Then the same thing. And Haridas then, of course, started to preach the holy name, the glories of the holy name. Kazi was getting infuriated. And Kazi said, if you just preach the Quran, you're a free man, you can do what you like. He said, I would never give up chanting the holy names. And he said, well, I'm going to have to punish you if you don't follow it. He placed it in front of the other Kazis. There are other Kazis there, it's not just the one. And for deciding what to do with you, they're the magistrates. They have to try you. Say, well, I don't mind what you do, but even if my body is cut into pieces and I lose my life, I will never give up chanting the Lord's holy name. This is a big lesson. Oh Krishna, please be merciful upon... Oh, this comes a little bit later, but this was his mood. And he said, that the Qazi said, the Nawab then said, then I have no choice. I have to leave it in the hands of the Qazi. I don't want to, but I have to. So the Qazis conferred and they decided he should be beaten to death, whipped to death in the marketplaces. There were about 20 or so marketplaces in that area. So the normal thing when they try people and sentence them to this kind of death is they drag them, they tie them and drag them through the streets, whipping them in each marketplace. And usually they last 1 or 2 markets and they're dead. And so they started with Haridas, dragging him through the streets, whipping him in each marketplace. And many guards, Muslim guards were there, keeping the people away. Many people were trying to stop them. They knew he was a saint, but they wouldn't stop. And what was even more amazing was that he was smiling. Haridas was smiling. Oh Krishna, please be merciful upon these poor souls. Kindly excuse them for their offense of torturing me. This was his mood. He wasn't just chanting and tolerating. This is the difference. More tolerant than a tree. This is the difference. Krishna, he was born in a Muslim family, born in a lowly family, personification of humility, the personification of tolerance. He didn't just tolerate, but he was actually thinking of the welfare of the people who were whipping him. That was his inner mind, taking shelter of the holy name, of course. At this stage, as we go back to our original question, who is he? It's described by Kavi Karnapura. What's that book called? Describing all the associates of Lord Chaitanya. Gaur Ganadesh Deepika, which describes the associates of Lord Chaitanya. And there it doesn't mention Lord Brahma, it mentions Prahlad Maharaj. He's Prahlad Maharaj. That makes it even more confusing, in one sense. And he's also described there, in his previous lifetime, he was a Brahmana named Brahma Mahatapa, whoever that is, who, by the way, another lesson, he got cursed by his father because he did the offering and he forgot to put a tulsi leaf on the offering. So you will be born in a low-class family in your next life. Sounds pretty heavy, doesn't it? Be careful when you're making your offerings. Don't need to worry, we're already born in low-class families, right? I don't know how much lower we can get. At least my case. All this is very mystifying, isn't it? Very mystifying. And there's no Shastric conclusive statement on this. But there are references that, Haridas gave prema to the prostitute, and Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are hankering for his association, are amazed by his chanting and dancing and so on. And different references. Now, there is a statement by Prabhupada, in fact, when he discusses Yasoda and Nanda, how in their previous lifetime, who were they? This you can read. Drona and Dara. In their previous lifetime, and because of their desire to have Krishna as their son, they took birth as Nanda and Yasoda. Now that's ridiculous. It's obviously ridiculous, isn't it, in one sense. Nanda and Yasoda, the eternal mother and father of Krishna. They don't become the mother and father of Krishna. They're eternal. So Prabhupada describes how Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj expand themselves as Drona and Dara. And when Krishna arrives, they re-enter into their original forms. That's all. You can look at it in different ways. There's another, and here when we see three persons, there's another angle here. They enter into that personality. They take his association. How do you become like someone? You associate with them. Huh? By association we become like that. So they associate with Haridas to develop those qualities of Haridas, or to experience the wonderful pastimes, or to manifest their particular mood, in this case, Prahlad Maharaj. The tolerance of Prahlad Maharaj is unlimited. His dependence on Krishna, exactly the same pastime. Maintaining this type of determination and being compassionate to all living entities while always chanting the holy name of Krishna is the path of devotional service exhibited by the previous Mahajans. And in this pastime, Vrindavan Das says that this is what the most profound and important lesson of the pastimes of Haridas, Nirantara Namalao. It means no matter what happens, one should always chant the holy name of Krishna, no matter what happens. We will go through many different ups and downs in our lives. And this is Haridas. He just kept chanting, smiling and smiling and smiling. I'm going to jump a pastime or two here. Later on, when Haridas Thakur, of course, what happened? After 22 they went to every single marketplace in the town. And they were whipping and whipping and whipping and whipping. And they were exhausted. They were devastated. The guards were finished. They were about to collapse. And they were looking so distraught because there was no more marketplaces to go. They'd failed to complete their task. And they were terrified because when the Nawab, when he would give a task to his servants and they didn't complete it, they were in trouble. They were scared for their lives. And Haridas could see them looking very, very sad and disturbed and frightened almost. He said, what's wrong? What's the problem? And then they explained their situation. He said, oh, you should have told me earlier. I would have died immediately. If my living causes you any pain or suffering, then let me go. And this was his mood. Then then Haridas, boom, he died. He died. Okay, end of class. End of the class, he died. Departure of Haridas Thakur. Is that right? Anibhushan, is that the end of it? No, but he died. The guards were ecstatic. They were ecstatic. We won, we did it. They dragged him back to the Nawab. Here he is, he's dead. He's dead now. So the Nawab said, okay, bury him. The Qazi said, no way does he deserve a burial. He's what do they call it? Infidel? The Muslims? He's an infidel. He doesn't deserve the privilege of a burial. He should be thrown in the nearby river and go to hell like all the other Hindus. So that was the decision, to throw him into the Ganga, was the nearby river, of course. Throw him in the Ganga. And I don't know if I can find that statement now. Let's see if I can find it. Anyway, it's just another continuation. These stories are too long. I can't tell. There's a snake charmer also. What a wonderful story that is. No time, I'm afraid. No time. Here's another one. One who associates with Haridas for even a fraction of a moment will certainly attain shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva always desires to associate with a devotee like Haridas. The demigods headed by Lord Brahma always hankered to become glorious by obtaining the association of a Mahabhagavat devotee like Haridas. Another confirmation. I don't know where the statement, there's a statement about Ganga Devi. Here it is. Haridas was born in a low-class family, just as Prahlad was born in a demoniac family, and Hanuman was born in a monkey family. The demigods desire the touch of Haridas, and even Mother Ganga desires that Haridas immerse in her waters. So now he's going to fulfill Ganga's desire as well. Amazing. And then there's a snake in the cave, that snake pastime, we haven't got time. Okay, so then what happened was they were going to throw him into the river. They couldn't pick him up. He weighed like 1,000,000 tons. 100 guards could not lift his body. They had chains on him, balls and chains, so he'd sink. Eventually he agreed to be taken to satisfy Ganga Devi to the river Ganga. And they threw him in the Ganga. I think that's the end of him. Though Ganga was in ecstasy, she became ecstatic to have the touch of Haridas Thakur. And she immediately released all the chains and balls and everything and carried him down the river and placed him back on the bank of the river just near Pulia. And he went back to the cave and started chanting again. So this event convinced just about everybody that Haridas is not an ordinary person, including the Nawab. The Nawab came there begging for forgiveness. He fell at Haridas's feet. You are the topmost saint. I surrender to you. You can do anything you like in my kingdom. No one can impede you from now on. You have the key of the city, so to speak. Freedom of the city. So the Nawab also became, he had a pious side to him. Anyway, that was that. So he carried on there, and then with Advaitacharya they prayed for the appearance of the Lord. And when the Lord appeared, they were together, dancing together on the bank of the Ganga. When they knew that the Lord appeared, when the eclipse took place and everyone started chanting Hari, Hari, Hari. And they gave charity and so on. Of course, Advaitacharya had recognized Haridas as the greatest personality, Shradapatra, all those pastimes that took place there. And now we're going to go now to the time Haridas Thakur, who was not known to the devotees in Navadvip. He came to Navadvip and he came into the association of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Lord Chaitanya was performing his, what's that called? Those pastimes where he was worshipped, was it 3 days? What's it called? Mahaprakash Leela. The Mahaprakash Leela. And Lord Chaitanya at one stage during that pastime calling upon each and every devotee, glorifying the devotees. Lord Chaitanya loved to glorify his devotees. Lord Chaitanya then turned his benign glance on Haridas and called out, Haridas, look at me. Your body and birth is superior to mine. Your class and caste is more elevated than mine. Nobody knew him practically amongst the devotees. Lord Chaitanya knew everything. I don't know if I've got that quote. This is a shortened version. Yeah, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then started to glorify Haridas Thakur as if he had thousands and thousands of tongues. He went on and on and on and on and on. The devotees never knew about it. They were all astonished and stunned to hear the glories of Haridas. And then our Lord was asking each devotee, ask for me whatever you like. And he asked Haridas, what can I want to give you some benediction, please ask me. So Haridas said, oh Lord, I have known only misfortune, yet you can give me so much hope. Just allow me to partake of the remnants of the foodstuffs of your devotees who are surrendered to your lotus feet. Let this activity be my permanent and most prominent service. Life after life. He didn't even ask to go back. He just wanted to take the remnants of the Lord's devotees. He didn't consider himself a devotee. If somehow or other I can get the remnants of your devotees, that would be the perfection for me. My sinful birth and existence is miserable, without remembrance of you. But now, please make my life successful by granting me the remnants of your servitors. Shuddha Bhagata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. These three things, huh? The remnants of the devotees. These are my foodstuffs. The dust of their feet, the water that's washed their feet. Most powerful substances. I feel within my heart that I have committed a grave offense by asking of you to be situated in the elevated state of a Vaishnava, for I am grossly unfit. It was interesting to note that when this pastime started back in the Brahma Vimohana Lila, that very thing was what Brahma did. He stopped the Lord from enjoying the pastimes, of enjoying the remnants of his own devotees, basically. They were, the Lord was stealing the remnants of his coward boys and vice versa and so on was going on. So now he's begging that he can also get those remnants. He thought, this is not God. How can he be like, God is stealing food off the plates of these coward boys? What is this? And now he's begging that he may get a little grain of that maha. O Lord, my Master, protector and maintainer of the entire creation, I'm spiritually lifeless, therefore kindly forgive my ignorance. O Lord Vishvambar, the beautiful son of Mother Sachi, you are my Master, so be merciful to me and keep me as a dog in the house of a Vaishnava. Amazing. Huh? Well, we're running out of time. Giri Govardhan.
Do you have some information about how he joined, how he got transformed into a Vaishnava? Who was his spiritual master, Advaitacharya?
Well, that we mentioned in the beginning, perhaps I didn't say it clearly, or you may not have been here, I don't know. There is nothing written to all the studies Rupa Vilasa and myself have done, we didn't come across any clear evidence of his, you could say, initiation. Clearly speaking, we understand that he was, in the association of Advaitacharya, which he had a lot of. But before that, he was chanting 3 lakhs. And we mentioned he was initiated by the Lord himself prior to his taken birth. I don't know if you were here then. We explained how the Lord initiated him in Navadweep, that you will appear as my chief assistant in spreading the Yuga Dharma. Your name will be Haridas and you will chant 3 lakhs. So he was initiated by the Lord himself before he took birth. So it's just a matter of time. It said when he was very young, he left home, a Muslim family, he left home and he went to the forest and started chanting 3 lakhs. But there's no mention if it was a personality who intervened at some stage, and which we often see is the case, and it may have been the case, but there's no mention there in any of the biographies or scriptural references that we know of anyway. So I can't answer more than that. But the Lord definitely initiated him in a sense, in his form of Brahma, in that way. Because Haridas is eternal, and we won't get there, but there are statements saying, you're my eternal associate. Wherever I go, whatever I do, you are there to assist me in my various incarnations to perform, this pastime of assisting me to establish the various purpose of those incarnations. So he seems to have a special role in the relationship with the Lord, of assisting him in establishing whatever is the needful. Mm-hmm.
Resounding to one of the first verses you read on, I can't remember if it was Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Mangala, but this described that he's the Rasa Prema. Remember that verse?
Yes.
An interesting, I was just thinking, an interesting little story when Rupa and Sanatan were visiting Puri.
Yes.
Where would they live? Where would they reside?
They lived with Haridas. They never entered the Puri temple, they stayed with Haridas. And day and night they were talking about, Leela. Day and night. So, there's a lot more to Haridas Thakur than just the little things we sometimes hear. There's a lot more. The deeper you go, the deeper it gets. And we'll never fathom it. We can never, say he's this, that and the other. He's simply the Lord's eternal, you could say, limb for bringing pleasure to the Lord in whatever form it may be. Even if he is Lord Brahma, he could be an expansion of Haridas Thakur playing the role of Brahma also. It's not impossible. Everything's possible, we can't say. But he's certainly way beyond our limited perception, that's for sure. But if we follow in his footsteps, and that's the whole process, isn't it? Mahajana yena gatak sapanta, to follow in the footsteps, as Prabhupada says many times, we follow in the footsteps. One who hears this pastime of the Lord and Haridas Thakur with proper faith will certainly enjoy the fruit of Krishna Prema. You don't hear that about Lord Brahma, for instance. These words are not my concoction, but the bold declaration of all scripture. One is sure to experience the bliss of devotional service to Lord Krishna if one lends all reception to the transcendental activities of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. All glories to Haridas Thakur, a giant among the Vaishnavas. By remembrance of him, one is free from all sinful reactions. Now, in that time when Lord Chaitanya manifests his Mahaprakash Leela, and he called upon him, the Lord then said, Haridas, do you remember that time when you were being beaten in the marketplaces? Do you remember that time? Which obviously infers it was way before he came into contact with Lord Chaitanya. You remember that time? And then Lord then described it. He said, when you were being beaten in those marketplaces, I threw my Sudarshan disc immediately to kill all of those persons who were trying to punish you. Sever their heads. Sudarshan raced there like a rocket, but you stopped Sudarshan. He couldn't go near them. No, please don't punish them. Please deliver them. Please have mercy on them. He wouldn't let my Sudarshan go near. So I went there. Lord Chaitanya said, I went there. And I placed my back on your back. I put my back on your back. Then Lord Chaitanya turned around. Everybody saw whip marks in the back of Lord Chaitanya, all down his back. I protected you. Naturally, everyone was astonished, realizing what a great soul was Haridas. When Lord Chaitanya went to Puri, Haridas was very sad. He considered himself the most wretched, fallen creature. I can never go to Puri. How will I go there? Lord Jagannath is there. Many Brahmanas are there. If they simply see me, I will be condemned. I'm so fallen. If they want to speak it, they unfortunately would touch my wretched body. He didn't know what to do. Lord Chaitanya convinced him, you come and I will make arrangements. So eventually he did come to Puri and he stayed at this place we've already heard, Siddhabakal. He never entered the temple, he was most qualified. He stayed there his rest of his life basically, chanting the holy name. Every day Lord Chaitanya would come to see him. And practically every day. Lord Chaitanya was staying in the house of Kashi Mishra in Gambhira. And he would come daily. If he didn't come, he would send his servant Govinda. He would bring Mahaprasad to him every day. And he said to Haridas, you just stay here, chant, and just look at the chakra on the flag on top of the temple. By seeing the chakra and the flag, it's the same as taking darshan of Lord Jagannath. So he did. And as Shastakam Prabhu said, Haridas, when he was there, Rupa and Sanatan, they stayed with him. Lord Chaitanya came to see them. That was another wonderful pastime. At every moment, Lord Chaitanya said, you take your bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Every moment you perform great sacrifices, austerity and charity. You are constantly studying the 4 Vedas and you are far better than any Brahmin or sannyasi. If one cannot complete the fixed number of rounds Prabhupada writes he is assigned, he should be considered to be in a diseased condition of spiritual life. Haridas Thakur is called Namacharya. Of course, we cannot imitate Haridas Thakur, but everyone must chant a prescribed number of rounds. In our Krishna conscious movement, we have fixed 16 rounds as the minimum. so that the Westerners will not feel burdened. These 16 rounds must be chanted, and chanted loudly, so that one can hear himself and others. Another time, when Haridas was in the Navadvip district, he went to a village called Harinadi, and there he met with the Brahmins who were there, and they challenged him, why are you chanting loudly? Because he would go chanting loudly. And he quoted many shastras that they were very, very offensive. And so this is now really Kali Yuga has begun. Now we see that Shudras, low-class persons, even less than Shudras, are preaching the Vedas, and they basically chased him out. There was a lot of, let's say, it wasn't like everyone was agreeing, there was a lot of opposition. He showed humility and tolerance at every step. We have to follow the great personalities. Haridas Thakur, he was chanting very loudly, Prabhupada writes, lectures rather. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted loudly. So what more evidence do you want? My Guru Maharaj chanted loudly, we are chanting loudly. It was Prabhupada's words in 1970. So he would chant loudly, kirtan, japa, everything. There's another picture of him there. And then, but many pastimes are in between, you could say. But the final pastime of Haridas Thakur's departure was coming. And one day Lord Chaitanya sent his servant there, Govinda, to Haridas, and Haridas was lying there, lying on his back. He was normally not doing that. He was, obviously something was physically wrong. And Govinda came and said, Haridas, please, I brought prasadam. And Haridas said, oh, today I'm not feeling well, I cannot take prasadam. But he touched the prasadam, he honored the prasadam. And Govinda went back and told Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya was, oh, very concerned. Next day Lord Chaitanya came back and said, Haridas, how are you? What is your problem? And Haridas said, my Lord, I'm very sick. I'm very sick. Lord Chaitanya said, what is your sickness? He said, my sickness is that I'm not able to finish my rounds. There's nothing wrong with my body or anything. My sickness is I cannot finish my rounds. Lord Chaitanya said, there's no need. You've already completed your purpose of appearing in my pastimes. There's no need. You don't have to follow these things. Haridas Thakur said, please do not create an illusion. This is actually, I've jumped forward a little bit, haven't I? Anyway, Lord Chaitanya, there you can see. My dear Lord, please do not touch me, for I am most fallen, untouchable, and the most lowest among men. The Lord said, I wish to touch you just to be purified, for your purified activities do not exist in me. So then Lord Chaitanya, he said, moving forward again now to the next scene, he said this is another painting we had commissioned. And Lord Chaitanya said, your sickness and so on, he said, please do not create an illusion, my Lord. I am the most fallen. I am the most wretched. Do not create an illusion. Although I am so fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. Then Lord Chaitanya said, what can I do for you? He said, I want to leave my body in your presence. And the Lord, of course, said, how can that be? How can I bear living without your presence? It's not possible. He said, do not create an illusion. My Lord, there are many respectable personalities, millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastimes. My Lord, if an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, where is the loss to the material world? My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I'm just an imitation devotee, but then nevertheless I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. He wanted to leave his body in the hands of the Lord, with his eyes gazing at the blissful, lotus-like face of Lord Chaitanya. So sure enough, the Lord left and he came back the next day. I said, what is the news? And Haridas said, whatever mercy you bestow upon me, my Lord, whatever mercy you give me, that is the news. And then Lord Chaitanya took Haridas Thakur in his arms and placed him. Haridas Lord Chaitanya placed his lotus feet. I don't know how he did it, but he did. He placed his lotus feet on the chest of Haridas. And there, with Haridas gazing intently at the face of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and tears streaming down the Lord's eyes, and down Haridas's eyes, Haridas was chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya. It's hard for me not to tell this story, but I haven't got time. I'll tell it another time, maybe tomorrow. A very wonderful experience one time we had in Jagannath Puri of this event. Haridas was gazing at the Lord's face, and his beautiful face, tears rolling down his eyes, chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, over and over again. And in the embrace of Lord Chaitanya, embracing Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, Haridas Thakur left his body. In front of all the great devotees like Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then began to describe the holy attributes of Haridas Thakur. As he described the transcendent attributes of Haridas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seemed to possess 5 mouths. The more he described, the more his great happiness increased. After hearing of the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur, all the devotees present were struck with wonder. They all offered their respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the body of Haridas and started to dance with the body of Haridas Thakur in his arms, ecstatically. And they then, Sri Damodar said, we have to go to the ocean. Apparently they placed the body of Haridas into a kind of like a big kind of, I don't know, chariot of some kind, and took him to the ocean. But here we see again Lord Chaitanya is now taking Haridas and bathing his body in the ocean with the waters of the ocean there in Puri, so that anyone who takes bath at this point will certainly be delivered from the ocean of birth and death, will go back to Godhead, because it's touched, the lotus feet of Haridas have touched that water. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally placed Haridas into Samadhi, associates all around having kirtan. Everyone then participated in placing the sand into the Samadhi and so on. And Lord Chaitanya himself then went begging for alms for the feast for Haridas. And Srup Damodar, of course, took over after a while. This is not a business befitting a sannyasi, but Lord Chaitanya then started serving prasadam. Again, Srup Damodar came and intervened, because no one would take prasadam unless Lord Chaitanya sat and started to take prasadam. And the final, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this benediction. Anyone who has seen the festival of Srila Haridas Thakur's passing away, anyone who has chanted and danced here, anyone who has offered sand on the body of Haridas Thakur, and anyone who has joined this festival to partake of the prasadam will achieve the favor of Krishna very soon. There is such wonderful power in seeing Haridas Thakur. Being merciful upon me, Krishna gave me the association of Haridas Thakur. Being independent in his desires, he has now broken that association. When Haridas Thakur wanted to leave this material world, it was not within my power to detain him. He didn't want to see the final pastimes of the Lord. He couldn't bear to see those pastimes. Simply by his will, Haridas Thakur could give up his body, give up his life and go away, exactly like Bhishma, who previously died simply by his own desire, as we have heard from Shastra. Haridas Thakur was the crown jewel on the head of this world. Without him, this world is now bereft of its valuable jewel. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone, say, all glories to Haridas Thakur. All glories to Haridas Thakur, and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this, he personally began to dance. Everyone began to dance. All glories to Haridas Thakur, who revealed the importance of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. And that's, if you go to the temple, the Samadhi temple of Haridas Thakur has been renovated maybe 10 years or so ago. Actually, I haven't been there since then. And there's this is the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur temple. This kind of linga of some kind on this samadhi.
Is it at Siddhavaku?
No, this is a different place. This is a samadhi, this is a different place. This is next to the, near Tota Gopinath's temple, near the seashore, where his samadhi is. Siddhabakul is a little distance away, closer to the Jagannath Puri temple. This is two different places, the Samadhi temple and the Siddhabakul. I've got lots of pictures, but this is a short presentation.
It's close to the ISKCON guest house.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the ISKCON guest house.
Right.
That's a very significant point. It is a bit of a controversial point, you could say, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur made his bhajan kutir right opposite to the place of Haridas Thakur's samadhi. And that was where Bhaktivinoda Thakur performed his bhajans when he was in Puri, right next to the samadhi temple of Haridas Thakur. And that bhajan kutir of Bhaktivinoda Thakur became an ISKCON property some decades ago. And the kutir was basically removed from external sight, and they built a guest house there for making money for whatever it is. There's a temple there, of course, there's a deity of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and so on. But anyway, that's a controversial point. What to do? What's done is done. And anyway, if you go to the ISKCON guest house there, you're just across the road from Haridas Thakur Samadhi. Haridas Thakur ki jai. And that's the gates to Siddhabakul, the gates to the spiritual realm. There's nowhere in the universe like Siddhabakul for chanting japa. You just have to tolerate Nita Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. And of course, you saw the Bakul tree. It's still there. Long story there. So many stories in no time. Jai Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Tomorrow is Bhadra Purnima, don't forget. And we'll be hearing about the Srila Prabhupada's sannyas, as well as Bhadra Purnima. Maybe a bit about Vishrupa sannyas also. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all very much. Sorry to keep you a long time over.